Hello. Yes, this is still Delight Channel. Welcome back on the Made Simple series, where we started with the career made simple. The last two episodes has been about interviews. And funny enough, I thought I ended last week with interviews, but after that recording, I also got other feedback to say, hey, you've not even elaborated sufficiently on different types of interview formats. Because sometimes it can destabilize an applicant if you run into an interview process that you are not aware of or you are not familiar with. So, based on that feedback, I'm going to do this one more edition on interview, and I think it is worth the effort. So what do we mean when we speak about interview format? I would rather want to go back and change that to call it the recruitment process. Now, again, that's why I keep telling you, if you miss any of the videos, it becomes disjointed. What we've spoken about in one of the episodes that we did recently is that the more you are aware of the organization with which you want to interview, the better for you. You need to be aware that different organizations go through the recruitment process differently. For some people, before they even see you at all, you need to go online and take a computer-based test. Sometimes it's just English, sometimes it's English and math, sometimes they are just shapes, sometimes they are GMAT type of questions. You need to be aware of these things and prepare yourself for them. Make that number one. For some organizations, they also require you to do psychometric tests. Now, many of you may not be familiar with this, but there are many free versions online. So go to Google or go to your browser and just type psychometric test. All it's trying to do is to profile your personality. And really, there are no good or bad, right or wrong answers. You just need to be true to yourself, because even beyond what the employer is trying to get, if you take a psychometric test and you see your own result, it helps you to become a better you. You know yourself better. It leads you in the direction of what kind of job you should even be applying for. It also helps you to know the kind of areas you need to improve on. Let me give you my own example. I've done a lot, but consistently, my results always come out as a very high D. Very dominant, very bullish, very authoritative, and very direct. Now, I picked that up early in my career, and because I know that even though that can be very beneficial in many aspects, it can also be very destructive in many aspects. So, over the years, I have learned to do what they call wearing a mask. I am now deliberate to be soft. So when I find myself pushing, before I go too hard, I know how to back off and then relax the air and then try and connect. I've also now added a lot of tools to my kit where I build relationship with people such that by the time my D rears his head, I already have some emotional deposit that kind of balances it out. Why or how was I able to do that? Because I got knowledge and I applied myself to that knowledge. So you need to be aware of psychometric tests. And it can be unnerving or overwhelming when you see those answers and say, choose the one that best describes you. And you are not sure if all your thinking is right or wrong and you are looking for the right answers, you are going to miss it. Because that is not the objective of that test. So make that another interview format. Also, there are interviewers that don't just interview you as a person, they interview you in a group. Increasingly, employers are realizing that it is not just about what you are able to achieve as an individual, it's about how well you can work with others. So, beyond just having a one-on-one interview, it could be a group of 6, a group of 7. Sometimes they give you tasks to go and do together. And they are waiting to see the dynamics. Who is the one that once is not the boss, nothing else works? Who is that one that will always just keep quiet and has no idea, just follows everybody? And they're watching. Usually there are cameras and people are watching you and they're debriefing somewhere. Sometimes when you even finish, each one of you is supposed to make a presentation. Again, it speaks to how you need to acquire skills before you are ready. We already spoke about that. If while you are waiting, you acquire skills around PowerPoint presentation, you know how to prepare a very good slide, the transition, the animation, and you know how to organize your thoughts to project what you are trying to say, it helps you to get ready for that opportunity, because when it then comes and you say, next, and it's your turn, you are not shaking, your knees are not knocking one another, and you are not shaking in your shoes. There are many employers that now employ this style to recruit, so you need to be ready for it. Of course, most people are familiar with the one-on-one, that one we've spoken about. Most people are also familiar with the one-on-many, where you have a panel interviewing you. That's what we've spoken about. So, in a nutshell, in fact, before I even wrap up, I remember now, there are also apps that are coming out that are supposed to be you alone taking a timed test of different sorts. And once you start, it begins to count. It's testing whether you know how to organize yourself to go to a quiet place to be able to concentrate. There is no time for you to even check anything because the clock is ticking and the questions are even more than the time allotted. It's all about how can you concentrate, how much speed do you have, and how comfortable are you with technology. So there are myriads coming and many more will still come. It all boils down to one thing: preparation. And this is not just about interview. It's a lifestyle. You need to learn that anything you want to do, don't do it haphazard. Do your best to prepare. Why? Because success is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. I repeat, success is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So, I'll rest it at this point this week. Make it a date next week as again, we try to push it one more bus stop as we trace the track for those of you who are on the career track. If I've made any sense to you, send me some comments. It's always very encouraging. Share with others. And if there are still things you still want me to dwell on as far as it's concerning interviews or anything I've spoken about already, write in and then we'll deal with it as we go on. Once again, thanks for being here every week. I really appreciate that. T-Mac is still my name. And all I'm trying to do is make a little difference. Thank you and see you next time. Bye.